Well, the moment I knew they were going to screw me wasn't when they reassigned my intern to team culture operations, or when our CTO started replying to my architecture reports with brain emojis and zero feedback. It was when I walked into the server room that morning and found a half-eaten muffin perched on the RAID array I designed. Blueberry. No napkin. Just crumbs on $500 million of infrastructure, and someone's lipstick smudged on the bite mark. That's how you know your code baby is about to be orphaned, when someone leaves bakery goods on it like a damn grave offering. Chrono Vault wasn't just a product. It was my cathedral, a digital vault that timestamped and encrypted every microtransaction, invoice, and handshake from Singapore to Stockholm. We had governments interested, billionaires circling like hawks, even DARPA sniffing at the edges. And it all ran on my core module, Epoch Root, not in the repo, not on the servers, not even in documentation, because I never checked it into Git. Why? Because I don't trust companies that schedule weekly gratitude circles right before annual budget season. So when HR summoned me with their laminated faces and limp handshakes, I already had a duplicate of the termination letter in my inbox, sent from a junior ops manager who thought BCC was a form of birth control. Your role has been evaluated as redundant in the post-deployment operational structure. Redundant. After 3 years, 2 breakdowns, and 1 DDoS attack I neutralized from a hospital bed while hooked up to Roman 4 fluids and morphine, I was now redundant. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I smiled, not wide. Just enough for them to wonder what I knew, because here's the thing no one in that fluorescent-lit clown court realized. The system they just rolled out. The one now live in 9 countries and syncing petabytes of critical trade data. It was a shell, a decoy, an armored vault with no floor, the keys, mine, more precisely, stored in a custom offline module I named Clio, after the Greek muse of history. Because if you're going to ruin someone, do it with poetic flair. And Clio, she was about to start singing. I didn't rush it. Let them celebrate. Let them post their smug press releases about leaning out ops for post-deployment success. I'd already seen the next move. They were trying to onboard someone to reverse engineer my key sets. Rookie mistake, because I'd embedded a little surprise in the diagnostic logs. A line of code so buried you'd need to speak fluent insomnia to find it. And someone did find it, because at 2:14 a.m. that night, my phone lit up. No number. Message preview. Is this your idea of a joke? That's when I knew they'd activated Epoch Root. And that's when I knew they were already locked out. I let the phone ring out, twice. Third time, I answered. Not with words, just silence and the sound of me unwrapping a piece of gum. Let them sit in it. Let them hear the echo of their own panic ricocheting off my comm. Miss Lynn, the voice said, tight and trying to sound composed. Male, mid-30s, probably the same new hire they thought could reverse engineer the system I built barefoot in a blackout during a thunderstorm while my cat was giving birth on my router. We're encountering unexpected behavior in the Epoch Root environment. I almost laughed. Instead, I took a slow drag of silence, then said, "Did you update the system timestamp manually?" He paused. That told me everything. They tried to bypass the initialization handshake. Amateurs. It triggered a fail-safe loop. He said, "We can't verify any blocks past T0. T0. The moment Epoch Root initialized. The moment I left the building. I said. Sounds like a key issue. Another pause, this one deeper. Like he knew where this was heading but hoped I wouldn't take it there. We'd appreciate your cooperation, he finally said. In exchange, the company is willing to, let me guess, I cut in. Offer me a consulting fee, maybe a public apology with zero liability and a gift card to fucking Panera? Dead air, so I made it worse. You didn't just shut yourselves out of a timestamp protocol, I said. You killed the chain of custody for $60 million in pending smart contracts. That data's invalid now. Can't be verified, can't be backfilled. Every transaction since my key went dark, it's legally useless. Still silence. No breathing. No keyboard clatter. Just tension like a rubber band stretched to its snapping point. And here's the part you're gonna love, I added. Because of how I structured the auditing trail, it's not just broken going forward. It's corrupted going backward. You now have 6 governments and 9 private clients unknowingly reading from a poisoned ledger. Click, I let him hang up. That's the thing about power. When you really have it, you don't need to threaten. You just wait for the silence to get loud. And it did. 6 hours later, I woke up to 52 missed calls. 3 blocked numbers. An email from the CEO's personal account with the subject line, urgent cooperation request. But it was the courier package that made me sit up. Hand-delivered. No label. Inside, my original offer letter, a printed Slack thread with my name redacted in every message, and a non-compete agreement dated 2 days before they fired me. Were trying to make it look like I'd never worked there, that I was some freelance code monkey with delusions of grandeur. They thought they were erasing me. What they didn't realize, I'd already backed up every shred of evidence, including a private server in Iceland and a client, one of their biggest, one who had already contacted me, not to fix their mess, but to help them build something better. Don't forget the first time a billionaire messages you at 3:47 a.m. with a smiley face and the words, "Let's talk." It wasn't even his assistant. It was him. Adrian Vale, the ghost behind half the data compliance infrastructure in Europe. A man so rich he once bought a country code, top-level domain, just to host his family's group chat. He didn't ask about the fallout, mention Chrono Vault or the digital crater left by their live deployment self-destructing in real time. He said, "You're the one who built the root, right? I want something cleaner, something sovereign." That word stuck with me. Sovereign, not secure, not fast. Sovereign, as in, no masters, no shareholders, no one to bury the architect the second the ribbon's cut. I told him I'd think about it. Then I stared at my wall for 2 hours straight, chewing ice and rage. Back at Foresight Tech, the meltdown was gaining heat. Someone finally noticed the timestamp discrepancies and triggered a full compliance audit. That meant lawyers. That meant international lawyers. That meant digital signatures being rejected mid-transfer by financial institutions in Dubai, Singapore, Berlin, dominoes falling in rhythmic precision. And all of it, leading back to one line in the source code that I buried 6 months ago under a function named getTemperature. Because, yes, I'm that petty. By sunrise, the CTO, Miles, the same guy who once told me, "Don't overcomplicate it, it's just math," had started blaming me for sabotage. Except here's the rub, there was no trace of my sabotage, because I didn't sabotage anything. I designed the system to require me. They deleted the architect. Now they were living inside a cathedral with no doors. Let them pray. I got my confirmation from Iceland that the backups were intact. Emails, chats, version logs, proofs of authorship, and the kill switch protocol all tied to my biometric access, digitally notarized. And just as I started drafting my public statement, a second courier showed up. No return address. Inside, a single flash drive. A sticky note on top. "Play me. Alone." I ran it in a sandbox. The file was a screen recording of my Slack DMs, private ones, messages I'd sent to Sasha in engineering, about my mental health, about working 90-hour weeks, about the panic attack I had during sprint week, about how I didn't trust Miles, how I feared they'd fire me once deployment went live, and at the end, a video. Grainy, obviously cropped. It showed me walking out of the server room days before the launch. Cut to a corrupted clip of logs updating without admin access. It was doctored. Badly, but enough to suggest one thing: they were going to frame me for corporate sabotage. And that was their final mistake. Because if you're going to kill the architect, don't forget she designed the escape tunnel too. The last time I felt fear, real fear, was during the Foresight Tech fire drill when someone locked the server room doors from the outside as a prank. I was inside. No phone, no AC, a wall of servers buzzing like a swarm of angry hornets. I remember thinking, this is how I die, surrounded by code that doesn't love me back. But this wasn't fear. Not now. This was war. They were building a narrative, the unstable engineer. A disgruntled ex-employee with too much access and not enough therapy. A woman who went rogue after being gently transitioned out of her role. Cute, except I'd already sent timestamped copies of my access logs to 3 journalists. One at Wired, one at Der Spiegel, and one at a tiny cybersecurity blog run by a guy who once reverse-engineered a government drone using a Roomba and Spite. I sent them the code snippets, the proofs, the Slack screenshots before they were redacted. And then I called Sasha. She picked up, breathless, probably in the stairwell. She'd warned me months ago not to save anything to the shared repo. Said Miles was sniffing around, asking questions about redundancies. She was the only one who believed me when I said this company would sell my corpse if they could license my brain post-mortem. "Did you see it?" I asked. She didn't say yes. She said, "I made a copy. The real security footage. From the server hallway. You have it?" "I have everything, Elena." That was the moment I knew I had them, because while Foresight Tech's little hit piece showed me creeping around like a digital gremlin, Sasha's footage had the truth. Miles, entering the server room at 1:17 a.m., plugging in a mystery USB, overriding permissions. Real-time footage synced to internal logs, his credentials, his keystrokes, and the kicker, he forgot to disable the overhead mic. Once she's out, rewire the route. Tell legal she had a breakdown. Verbatim. Sasha encrypted the file, split it into 5 chunks, and uploaded them to 5 separate data vaults. One in Norway, one in Thailand, one in her cousin's crypto wallet, one disguised as Taylor Swift fanfiction in a Wattpad account, and one on Adrian Vale's personal node, tagged with my signature hash. It was now evidence, and a nuke. Meanwhile, the fallout from Epoch Root's failure was turning tectonic. 2 Fortune 500 companies had pulled out. UN-backed trade initiatives suspended all integration. Their stock froze mid-trade before plummeting 43% in a single day. The board called an emergency session. Miles went radio silent. And then, like poetic justice wrapped in HTML, I got a text from an unknown number. You win. How much to fix it? I stared at the screen. Then replied with one word, no, because fixing it wasn't the point. Watching them burn in a cathedral they called progress. Now that was the symphony. They tried to go around me. Of course they did. When you're cornered by a problem you created, the corporate instinct isn't to apologize. It's to panic, outsource, gaslight. They spun up a recovery task force, hired a third-party firm with a name like a password, XeroxSec, to restore service integrity. Cute, like duct taping a broken dam. The team poked around Epoch Root for 36 hours straight. They tried patching the smart contracts, resetting the core hash chain. Recompiling the public-facing modules like that would somehow trick the private engine into purring again. But Epoch Root doesn't purr. It roars or it dies. And without the original key, it was in a state of recursive coma. Frozen between 2 logic gates, Schrödinger's ledger. Neither verified nor invalidated, just rotting. And came the leaks. The first headline was a whisper. Foresight Tech deployment faces unexpected technical irregularities. The second one screamed. $60M trade platform collapses after architect's exit. By the third, former engineer accuses CTO of sabotage, produces audio evidence. That last one, that was mine. I dropped the Miles audio into the bloodstream with surgical timing, an anonymous upload, watermarked with the date and time, aired over footage of him entering the server room. The net ate it alive. LinkedIn turned into a battlefield. Twitter spun theories like a hive on amphetamines. Even TikTok was in on it. Some 20-year-old in a basement synced his confession to a backing track of elevator jazz and labeled it How Not to Be a CTO, EP 1. But the real masterpiece, the investors. Adrian Vale didn't just reach out to me. He reached past them. He issued a public statement, praising the genius behind Epoch Root, calling my original design the most airtight timestamp protocol ever developed. He closed it with a simple line. No one replaces the foundation without the architect's permission. In that single sentence, he yanked the floor out from under them. The board ousted Miles within 24 hours. Emergency vote. Swept him out like rotted meat. And the next morning, the CEO himself, Devlin Hart, kind of man who thought Patagonia vests were armor, called me. Personally, I didn't answer, so he left a voicemail. Polished, scripted. I believe we've had some misunderstandings. We deeply value your contributions. Let's explore a path forward together. He sounded like a man who just realized the gun he'd cleaned for show had gone off in his own lap, so I replied, but not with a call. I scheduled a meeting. Sent a link. Private Zoom. One attendee. Logged in exactly on time. Of course he did. I turned on my camera, so did he. And I swear to God, the man was sweating through his eyelids. I didn't smile. I let the silence crawl between us like static. Then I said, you called me redundant. He tried to laugh. That was a miscommunication. I cut him off. You framed me. That wasn't authorized. That was Miles acting unilaterally, and save it. I leaned in. You have 24 hours to sign over full attribution rights, transfer my equity vesting, and issue a public correction naming me as sole architect of Epoch Root. He blinked like a toddler seeing fire for the first time. And if we don't, he asked, with a shred of false courage. Then I'll publish the other audio, I said. What other audio? The one where the board joked about replacing me with a fresh grad who's easier to control. One where they laughed about pushing me out before she gets too much credit. The one I hadn't yet released. He went pale. Lips parted, eyes darted, I ended the call. No goodbye, no thanks. Just one last whisper before the screen went black. I was never locked out. I was just watching. They folded. Harder than I expected, honestly. 23 hours and 14 minutes later, I got the DocuSign bundle. PDF stacked with trembling legalese and suddenly reverent clauses. Attribution restored. Equity retroactively recalculated. NDA waived. Public apology pre-written and sent for my approval. I added a sentence. We regret undermining the very architect who built the foundation of our future. Then I clicked accept. But that wasn't the end. No, that was just the public funeral. Behind the curtain, the company was imploding like a star that got too greedy with gravity. A third of their clients froze payments. 2 major backers pulled out entirely, citing loss of technical trust. Internally, their dev team turned into a witch hunt committee, engineers pointing fingers, trying to survive the fallout. Sasha resigned and joined me. Vale offered her double. I matched it. She refused both and said, just build something they can't touch. So we did. Took the blueprint for Chrono Vault, stripped out the rot, redesigned it under a new name, Obsidian Root, and wrote the first 10,000 lines of code from a glass cabin in Montana, surrounded by snow and silence. Meanwhile, Foresight Tech tried to rebrand. They rolled out some limp initiative called Future Frame, like a bad sequel nobody asked for. It launched with missing features and a forced smile from their new CTO, and who once asked me in Slack what an environment variable was. And then came the conference. World Chain 25. Every major player in cryptographic ledger systems, provenance management, data integrity. Adrian Vale had a keynote, and I had the final slot, closing speaker. By then, I was already something between a cautionary tale and a minor legend. The woman who nuked her former employer and walked out holding the only copy of the Bible. I talk the lie of replaceability. I opened with a slide of my old Foresight Tech ID badge, the word terminated stamped across it. I told the story, not the sanitized one, not the headline version, but mine, how they tried to erase me, how they built a kingdom on code they didn't understand, how their obsession with control cost them not just millions, but their soul. And then I revealed Obsidian Root, live demo, 10 seconds, immutable, self-forking, trustless ledger inheritance. No single point of administrative failure. It even mocked you if you tried to alter past entries, literal error message, don't gaslight the blockchain. The applause wasn't loud, it was slow, heavy, intentional. And as I walked off that stage, I saw Devlin Hart, ex-CEO, standing in the back row, half-hidden, eyes glassy, jaw clenched. He clapped too, 1 beat late. 1 lifetime too late. Looked like a man watching the execution of a ghost he thought he'd buried. And I didn't look back. I thought that would be the end of it. Thought the ashes would settle, the vultures would scatter, and I'd go back to being just a name whispered in glass-walled boardrooms as a cautionary tale or a legend, depending who you asked. But ghosts don't stay buried in tech. Not when there's still money to be made off their bones. 3 weeks after my World Chain talk, I got a tip from an anonymous Proton mail. Subject line, you should see this. No greeting, no sign-off, just a link. It was a leaked proposal. Foresight Tech, what was left of it, was shopping a white-labeled clone of Chrono Vault. New name, new coat of paint, same skeleton. Someone had taken my legacy and stapled their logo on top of it like a Frankenstein sticker over a severed limb. Except the code was wrong. Badly wrong. Tried to reverse engineer Epoch Root using decompiled fragments. Their team clearly didn't understand the recursive trust logic. Worse, they'd faked portions of it. Hard-coded hash chains, simulated consensus. Entire sections of the ledger were built to appear immutable, but had silent override conditions baked in. It wasn't just bad design, it was a trapdoor. And they were selling it to sovereign clients, including the government of a small but politically volatile nation that depended on data integrity to keep literal peace between factions. If that system failed, and it would, people wouldn't just lose money. They'd lose lives. I called Sasha. Do we still have root access to the backup vaults? She paused. You mean the ones we set in the failover plan? Exactly. Yeah, but Elena, if we do this, if we burn them publicly again, we don't burn, I said. We reveal. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't about Devlin or Miles, or the smear campaigns or gaslighting or the years they tried to fold my genius into their mediocrity. This was about something bigger. They weren't just erasing me now, they were endangering real-world systems with code I refused to write. So I did it. I compiled a full breakdown. A 92-slide dossier, side-by-side diffs, metadata comparisons, forensic traces, all signed, time-stamped, and notarized on Obsidian Root itself. Then I wrote the article. The Myth of Innovation, How Foresight Tech Forged a Ghost System. It went live on a Tuesday. By Thursday, they were trending, not in the good way. Federal probes, international audits, 3 class action suits, and the prime minister of that small country issued a public statement thanking the independent expert who intervened before disaster. They didn't name me. They didn't have to. Whole industry knew. Foresight Tech was finished. And I was finally free. Freedom, it turns out, doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like silence, the kind you earn. The kind that wraps around your bones like armor. After the exposé dropped, the vultures scattered for good. Foresight Tech's board disbanded. Devlin tried to pivot, to start some bootstrapped consultancy firm in Miami. Last I heard, was pitching AI-powered wedding planning apps to investors who wouldn't return his emails. Miles disappeared entirely. Some say he moved to Belize. Others say he's writing a book about corporate trauma. I hope he titles it How to Get Outmaneuvered by the Woman You Called Redundant. Sasha and I kept building. Obsidian Root became more than just tech. It became infrastructure. Nations adopted it. Ngo, supply chains, digital art houses, even a solar company in Kenya using it to timestamp microgrid handoffs. All because one woman refused to hand over the keys to her own mind. And I never sold it. I licensed it, on my terms, with clear authorship. Every contract includes one line in bold: no fork shall be made without the author's explicit, verifiable consent. Sometimes, I still get messages from new engineers. Usually women, usually tired. They say things like, I didn't think I was allowed to walk away from the fire and still own the house. And I tell them, you don't walk away, you stay, you document, you watch the match drop. And when they finally realize the blaze was their own doing, you build again. Better, smarter, untouchable. The best revenge isn't fire. It's architecture. It's standing on the 80th floor of a tower they tried to bury you beneath and owning the damn blueprint. Big thanks, you legends of the old office days. Subscribe to keep the switch-flicking chaos alive. Your ex-boss is shaking in their loafers.